Welcome to #Mindshift Talk, powered by Create Mindspace with Katrin Büßmann.
Yeah, well, we definitely, like I said, I'd say for anybody who's looking at starting a mindfulness practice in their company, ask your company what's important. So measure the things that are important. So at Boeing, safety, like physical safety was important.
Yes.
Physical safety isn't as important to us here. What's important to us at Amazon is that focus and that self-awareness and social connectedness. Those are the important things. So find the things that are, and resilience, of course, as well. So find the things that are important and then measure those things.
It is a platform to share, educate, and inspire. Welcome to our third episode of #Mindshift Talk. Thank you for being part of this journey together. I'm really excited to announce my next guest speaker, Bridgette Christiansen, to our series about gaining insights and acquiring tools to implement mindfulness and emotional intelligence in a corporate environment. Define challenges, determine possibilities, create opportunities. Bridgette is an executive coach and mindfulness teacher with nearly 20 years of experience as a business leader. A successful career as an executive for Fortune and NASDAQ 100 companies led her to burnout and debilitating bouts of anxiety and depression. And then she discovered mindfulness. Her journey into mindfulness and meditation has expanded and brightened her life in ways she never imagined. Today, she dedicates her time to introducing business leaders and entrepreneurs to the essential tools, skills, and mindset shifts that will ensure they thrive in their careers and lives. Thank you, Bridgette, for being here with us today. Welcome to #Mindshift Talk. I'm excited to have you. Before we go into a broader conversation, it would be great if you could please share a little bit about yourself and where you are today. What should people know about you so they really know who you are?
Oh, well, good morning, good afternoon to whoever's listening, and good morning to you, Katrine. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. I'm excited. Wow, that's such a big question. That's such a big question for only a few minutes. So geographically, I'm speaking to you today from my home in Kirkland, Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And where I am is coming to the end of a crazy year, as I know all of your listeners have, and all of us who've alive on the planet in 2020. It's been a crazy year, and really coming into a stage of reflection and just trying to make sense of it. Just trying to make sense of what this last year was like for me. And how it will impact and how it has impacted my broader life as a seeker, as a journeyman, as someone who is on a path trying to make her way in the world the best way that she possibly can. So I know that this time of COVID has given us all a time to figure that out, or at least make some sense of it. And I myself am just in the middle of sense making and reflection, and just wondering what kind of impact this has for me in my path as I continue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's it has been quite a year for sure, and it definitely had a big impact on everybody, I think, around the world. So yeah, thank you for that little introduction. And maybe we dive deeper into a little bit of where you come from career-wise. You had a very successful career in the corporate world in sales. And then you actually shifted completely into a different direction with now being a senior executive coach at Amazon. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your corporate career path and maybe as well what made you transition and really kind of, conquer on that new path?
Yeah. It's funny. I have some friends who have children that are, or young adults who are in their freshman year, second year of college. And in having conversations with them, I realize that I'm really no different than they are. As I said in my introduction, I'm a seeker, still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
I love that.
I guess that's a good place to be. Is I come into the probably most likely the closing chapter of my corporate career anyway. Just always trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, and that kind of started. I began a career in sales because as I graduated from university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had decided I actually did not want to go into the working world and be with all of those people that are in corporate America, and wanted to either be a ski instructor or go do volunteer work. And so I ended up doing the more altruistic thing, and mostly because I wasn't good enough to be a ski instructor, but took the altruistic route and went down to South America for about a year and a half to work with an organization down there, and worked in an orphanage or two or three actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I point that out because, that really was that place of where can I started my career with the where can I serve and what can I do to make the world a better place, and ended up getting curtailed into sales because I didn't know how to make a living doing that, and had some adults in my life who'd said, oh, you've got a really great personality, you should go into sales. And I had a couple people say that to me, and I'm like, okay. So I went into sales, and it turns out I was pretty good at it. More from a relationship standpoint. I'm a relationship person, and I'm very good at building relationships and rapport with people. And if there's something that I believe in, I can be very compelling and very convincing. And so there I was, in sales, and because I was good at what I did, I ended up continuing to get promoted, which is also a very classic corporate career thing, which is you promote the people that are good at their craft, even though they don't really know how to lead or manage or anything like that. And I certainly was like that. But I had ended up just getting job after job and promoted. And next thing I knew, I was in my 30s, mid 30s, and had achieved a pretty high amount of success, if you will, and kind of looked around and went, oh my gosh, is this all there is? I don't actually like sales. I don't really like selling stuff at all. I don't like the persona that it carries, the stereotype that it carries. It just wasn't really aligned with who I was on the inside. And yet I just kept getting bigger jobs and making more money. And it was this weird thing until I finally got to a point where I realized I didn't want to stay on that track anymore, because it would mean I'd have to keep moving, and it's just very stressful. It's very much not a present moment activity. It's all about the next quarter, and spending a lot of time going from quarter to quarter and being literally only as good as your last quarter. I mean, really,
Right.
that's the only value that you have. And so I just hit a wall. I got burnt out and started behaving badly, misbehaving at work, and wasn't very pleasant to be around. And that internal dissatisfaction was showing up in my external world quite a lot. And at that point had the opportunity to work with an executive coach, and had decided I really wanted to I'd rather be coaching and helping people be the type of leader that I was never able to become myself, right? Seeing the impact that a leader can have on so many people was very appealing to me, versus being just the leader having the impact of, gosh, if I could impact 10 leaders who each led 1,000 people, that's a lot of people,
Yes.
versus just the few hundred that I led. So that was really the track that I took, is going into coaching. And then when I found myself coaching and having a really wonderful time in my life doing that. I was also very unhappy as well. So you get the kind of this theme of that, always looking to find, who am I? How can I add value? How can I make a difference in the world? And that's really been the path that I continue to be on. And like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah, I feel like, I see myself in that too. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a pattern in the world maybe right now too, that everybody's kind of looking, and it's a journey, right? It's not that we have
Yeah.
to be somewhere, but it's really the journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was great insight. And when we look into mindfulness now, how did this come into your life, and how was that part of your coaching from the beginning, or how did you discover mindfulness as a strategy, maybe for yourself, but then as well in your work life
Yeah.
too?
Yeah. Well, so that's all part of the journey too, isn't it? So when I found myself coaching, doing my dream job, I went to go see a coach when I was kind of mid-career, trying to make my exit from corporate America, and hired this coach and to help me figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And she, like 2 or 3 sessions into, and I'd never even finished all my series of sessions that I hired her for, because I went, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to be a coach. So I had finally found my dream job and was making my living coaching. But as I mentioned before, I was still really unhappy. So there was this deep sense of discontentment and dissatisfaction and lack of fulfillment within, even though I was doing my dream job. So I had continued to keep doing these jobs that I said, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And I kept being good at it. And then I'd try something new and I'd be good at it. And I was still dissatisfied. And to the point where I was really struggling with depression quite a lot, struggling with anxiety a lot. And, our conventional way of doing things, at least in the United States, is we write a prescription for it. So, had found some great antidepressants and some great anti-anxiety medicine, or so it had been billed. And I had been on and off medication for a while and was still not happy and was still very dissatisfied and unfulfilled. I think more than anything, just feeling unfulfilled. And at that point, I had found myself pretty desperate, pretty much not able to function very well, and found myself on my sofa for about 4 days straight, without really being able to do much, because I was so just riddled with worry and anxiety and fear. And a few people in my life over the years had recommended I start meditating, because they said that, you're pretty wound pretty tight, and, maybe you should try meditating. And I just went, that's just not for me. It's just too woo-woo and too, I always use the phrase very granola, like, hippies did that, and I'm just not. If you saw me, I'm not a hippie at all. I'm pretty conventional in so many ways. And I was like, that's just not me. But then I got desperate. Then it's like, well, so far the medication's not working. So far, changing your life isn't working. So far, everything you've tried isn't working, and you're not happy with the way your mind is functioning. And I read a book by Dan Siegel called Mindsight, one of his early books, and which I just love listening to him talk about the mind. And it was the first time I had heard purported that if I meditated, I could actually change the way that my mind works. So it was like the beginnings of this scientific evidence that mindfulness and meditation actually changes the function of our brain, and it changes the structure of our brain. And at that point I was like, well, it can't get worse. Like I have nowhere to go but up from here. And I got myself on a flight down to UCLA, which is where Dan Siegel was on staff, or still is, I believe, in the School of Psychiatric Medicine. And they have and I started to work inside. I went to go work at the Boeing company as an internal executive coach. And I was coming across just a huge array of executives who were all similar to me, how I was feeling. Like they were full of anxiety, they were full of worry, they were sometimes depressed, but more anxious than not. And I thought, oh my gosh, I now have finally figured out how I can apply all of this learning that I've been doing in coaching in the corporate America. So first, the corporate piece of it and the rapport that I have with people, with other executives, my ability to communicate with executives, with my ability to coach and help them improve how they're showing up in the world, to helping improve their inner experiences. So it's that kind of thread that just got pulled from kind of career stop to career stop to career stop, where I just decided I would start talking to people about mindfulness in my coaching with them and see what their appetite was for it. And it turns out there was a very voracious appetite at Boeing for that with the executive population. And so now I just continue to build it in. I used to be a little bit more forthright with it, more prescriptive, but I think that happens with anybody who's trying a new skill and building, finding the new thing. How many times have you been on a meditation retreat where you're thinking about people that would benefit from meditating, right? You automatically start thinking about all the people in the world that would be better as a result of meditating. And so you got to just turn it back inside yourself. And so over time, as the more I teach, the more I give people space to discover it, and I guide them and provide them with the support and the tools and the reference points if they're open to it. And it does turn out that a lot of people are more open to it than your probably average corporate America would let you believe. I think there's a big belief that it doesn't belong there, but there's a lot of people in the system, and I'm referring to Amazon now because I work at Amazon, but there's a lot of people in the system that are really do practice and have these what I call closet practices around mindfulness. So it's not as big of a stretch as it used to be 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I feel like especially how we are, or like where we are in the world today, it totally shifted as well through kind of what we experienced this year with the pandemic, and kind of just a totally different. Yeah, I think we all got a different perspective on kind of how we live our life and the lifestyle, and especially with working from home, there are a lot of challenges coming at us, especially around mental health, and I think that definitely probably helped to get us on the right track in that field too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned, so I think like last year or maybe a couple of years ago, you moved from Boeing into a new job or a new role at Amazon. And yeah, at your current role there, what are you actually doing around mindfulness at Amazon now? Because
well, I'm trying to do more. One would argue the pandemic would have been a good time for me to start teaching more, which I just started teaching a little bit. But Amazon, it's a big company with a lot of people. We've got over 1 million employees now.
Oh, wow.
I think it's the second largest company in America now. So it's huge, and it moves very, very fast. So anybody who is an Amazon customer knows that we're always raising the bar on our customer experience, and it's a relentless drive towards improving the customer experience, and it's exhausting. It's a lot to keep up with, just for an average Jane like me. It's hard. So it took me a while to transition from Boeing, which is a much more static company, much more even-keeled company, less innovative on many fronts, but its temperament is much slower. So it took me a while just to acclimate to the fast pace of Amazon. So it took me a while to figure out how to bring mindfulness into Amazon. The other thing at Amazon is we pride ourselves on being very peculiar and having our own way of doing things. And I at first didn't believe that. I'm like, every company says that, but truly Amazon is a very different place. And so what I had been encouraged by the people around me to make sure that it was Amazonian, and make sure that the people in Amazon would be able to interpret it as their own, or it would be seen as being very Amazonian. And it sounds kind of silly as I'm hearing myself say that, but it's so true. So it just took me a while to get acclimated to the culture and in the pace of all of that. So I'm only just now, I started teaching in April. And when I say teaching, there is a 6-week class that I teach.
Mhm.
called mindfulness-based leadership. And it's using the principles of emotional intelligence with mindfulness and combining them with some very practical ways of practicing mindfulness. And so the program itself has got 3 components. There's a didactic piece of it, which I share just a little bit of content. Then there is a practice piece. So we leave people with what we call a dedicated practice, a variety of a dedicated practice, and then what we call a pocket practice, which is something they could just pull out of their pocket when they need and try it out. And then relational mindfulness, so an opportunity to speak to each other and to learn from each other's experiences and to help them kind of process what's going on for them through learning by learning through other people. And so we had started teaching it, or I had had the intention of teaching it. I only ever taught it in person or in face to face rather.
Yes.
And then of course the pandemic happens, right? And then everything gets moved online. And I had told myself the story that I wasn't a good teacher virtually. That just wasn't my thing. Teaching virtually wasn't my thing. So it took me a bit of time to get that figured out and to get the confidence to be teaching virtually. And now I have a renewed commitment to really taking the content that I created in the past and make it Amazonian. And there's some things I'm playing with in terms of applying it to our business specifically, and have tried a couple pilots, tried it out a few times. I do a lot of intro sessions. I get invited to a lot of team meetings and all hands meetings and things like that, just to do an hour presentation on mindfulness. So I do a lot of those. But now I'm I'm working with some other people. It's certainly not just me. There's some other people, and I are trying to create more of a movement within Amazon with mindfulness by making it more Amazonian and some things like that. And also trying to bridge all of the different places where people are practicing mindfulness and meditating. So we have a lot of what we call affinity groups and a lot of just smaller groups that get together. Like anybody can create their own community, and there's a lot of fragmented communities out there. And so the team and I are working hard at trying to create a brand around mindfulness, meaning a place where someone can go if they're interested in mindfulness and explore the different things that are happening within Amazon around what mindfulness is. So there's a lot of different communities, but representing it on a broader level, and really focusing on giving people the practical tools on either how to build their own practice, how to as I say, build their gray matter density through a dedicated practice, like that you and I do every day, or making it accessible by just remembering to be mindful and being aware of what your mind is full of, and being aware of how what your mind is full of will impact the interactions that you have with the people around you. So trying to make it as accessible and approachable as possible.
Yeah, nice. That sounds amazing. Can you maybe talk a little bit about challenges you have as well in the company? Because I can see probably, I mean, it's a huge company. You mentioned already more than 1 million employees now globally. And I can see probably a lot of people are more like maybe hesitant or resistant towards an approach like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a type A culture. There's a lot of type A people who don't slow down.
Right.
If anything, the pandemic has made it worse. People have revved up because now their home life and their work life have become completely enmeshed. As people have kids coming, during conference calls asking for help with their homework, right? Their lives have become completely enmeshed. So that is definitely one of the challenges, is the pace of the company makes it easy to say, oh yeah, I should slow down, and yet the pace makes it impossible to actually slow down. And so that's that's something that I worry about. Are people, really allowing themselves, even taking 5 minutes? Like, it's ridiculous that we can't even take 5 minutes. So I'd say that's one big challenge. The other challenge is data. So, the study of mindfulness, as in terms of the research, like the the empirical research that's done is pretty nascent. Like it's only about 15 years worth of research, and there's still not a lot out there in the scheme of things. Like if you were to take your heart health, for example, the number of studies that are done with regards to your cardiovascular health versus your mental health, it's vastly different. So there is still, it's pretty nascent, and it is a very data oriented culture. They want the data, demonstrate to us that this will actually do something for us. And so, I think the other thing that's taken me a while to get adjusted to teaching at Amazon and really feeling comfortable with carrying the flag is figuring out what's the context, what's the context within Amazon that I need to speak? What are the things that I need to identify that are going to matter to my stakeholders? And it's taken me a while to figure out what's important to the company. In order to figure out how do I position the data and the research that's been available now through mindfulness to position it towards someone that at least is interested enough for us to get our own data, our own proof. We're all about getting our own proof. We don't really follow studies or things like that. We all want internal data. So, but then you can't get the opportunity to do it unless you have the data. So it kind of becomes this little bit of a swirl. But I'm happy to say that we've made some progress in the last couple months where we've found a senior executive who has really been intrigued by what mindfulness can offer his broader team, and he has a very, very large team. And so we've approached it with, there's 4 things we think we can help with. One is resilience. So that's the good thing about this pandemic is it's forced us as a company, and I think it's forced us as a population to look at how do we develop our own resilience, right? Because this is definitely a resilience proving year, and more than likely next year will be as well. So how do you help people build that inner ability to bounce back from difficult challenges, because it's still going to be here? So developing resilience, helping with mental focus, building connectiveness, building social connectedness, and so kind of working on those pillars feels like it's really important. There's another piece of that too that I find interesting as I started to teach mindfulness in the corporate setting. There's a lot of naysayers out there that say, that mindfulness is just all about making corporate America richer, or making it stronger, right? So you have those people who are saying it's, we're creating more evil or whatever. I don't know what they say, but it's like they try to villainize mindfulness in the context of corporate America.
Yes.
But what I find really quite wonderful about Amazon is that it is a culture that is very innovative and appreciates innovation and doing things differently and disrupting constantly. And the people that are there want to be there because they want to innovate. And they want to create cool things and they want to do cool things. And what's great is I can help someone be more focused mentally, so that they can do the great work that they want to do. Right. Which is, it's that we have to take that into account too. Most people want to be focused. They want to add value. They want to make a difference. They want to have purpose. And if, you and I as teachers can help them find that within themselves so that they can feel more productive in their lives, both in a work perspective and a personal perspective. Wow, how lucky are we?
Yes, definitely. And I feel like with mindfulness, you're creating an environment as well, which feels safe, emotionally safe.
Yeah.
And that's where creativity happens, right?
That's right.
And that's where I feel like it's really linking back to innovation again, too.
That's right. And actually, I think Google did a study on high performing teams, and what they found are the highest performing teams, there's a high degree of psychological safety.
Yes.
That same safety that you mentioned, right? Which has to come from self-awareness. Like in order for me to create a psychologically safe environment, I have to be aware of what I am doing that is either contributing from that or detracting from that for my team as a leader, right? So self-awareness is really a linchpin, I think, for a lot of this, in creating psychological safety and inclusion, and connectedness and resilience.
Which is getting more and more important. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love how you talk as well about the return of investment, because I think that's definitely something I experience a lot. There's a lot of discussion around how can you actually measure something like that in a corporate environment. And I feel there's a lot of interest now from companies, but a lot of people are still very hesitant on stepping into it in a broader scheme, just
Right.
because there's a challenge on really, measuring it. But yeah, let us know what you come up with. I think it's going to be an interesting journey going forward, for sure.
Yeah, well, we definitely, like I said, I'd say for anybody who's looking at starting a mindfulness practice in their company, ask your company what's important. So measure the things that are important. So at Boeing, safety, like physical safety, was important.
Yes.
Physical safety isn't as important to us here. What's important to us at Amazon is that that focus and that self-awareness and social connectedness. Those are the important things. So find the things that are, and resilience, of course, as well. So find the things that are important and then measure those things. And so we're launching the pilot for this kind of revised content with the sponsorship of this executive. And, we're being very careful about the things we're asking people. You do a pre-survey, you do a post-survey. You measure how are they feeling about those factors before they start, how are they feeling about those things when they finish, right? So it's important to keep track of the data. And again, measure the things that are important to your company, not the things that you think are important. And that's probably the best start to an ROI. But yes, I will definitely keep you posted and we'll see how we do. We're optimistic.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to hear more, for sure. And so, I mean, you talked a little bit already when you kind of what you would recommend maybe to the listeners today, if they want to get started at their company. Maybe do you maybe have a couple of recommendations? I mean, you mentioned already one piece is really listening, right? Is really listening to the company. What are the needs in the company?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say that listening for the needs is really important. I also think courage is really important. I remember when I first started at Boeing, and I was, like I said, I was hired as a coach. I had this mindfulness practice, and I walked in there. I'm like, I'm going to teach all the executives mindfulness. And so many people around me said, it's an engineering company, right? It's a very conventional engineering company where many of the executives have been at the company for 30, 40 years, right? Very conventional company. And people were saying, no, they're not going to go for that. Like, so many people around me tried to tell me not to do it. And had I believed that, if I had taken their advice, I would never have done it. And I'd like to say that I can look at that chapter of my career having made a difference for some people, and that's all that matters. I would have made the difference for nobody had I not had the courage to say, my intuition's telling me something different. My life experience is telling me something different, which are executives are people. Like, we're all people. Everybody, or every person that goes to work every day is a person. And I think at the center of it all, we have a lot of the same desires and needs. And we want to be the best person that we can be, whether we know it or not. And so have courage to say to the system, I don't actually support that, or I don't believe that, because you will have a lot of people saying to you, this isn't for us, XYZ reasons. Like, you're gonna hear it. There's a lot more naysayers than there are supporters. So find the supporters and have the courage to speak the truth that and it isn't just your intuition, it is your life experience too. You've got a lot of experience, right? And you will find people that are attracted to it. The other thing I think is really important is competence as well, right? So do your own work. That's what I mean by that. Keep doing your own work, keep doing your own practice. Be the example that you want people to follow. And that happens when you do your work, when we do our practice, both the pocket practices, both the sitting practices, as well as the discipline of being present for our relationships, right? Showing up and actually giving the people that you're interacting with your full attention, for even if it's a fleeting moment, give them the full attention that they deserve when you're there. And that's called building the competence for me. That's what I mean by building the competence. So keep doing your work. And find people to support you. Find people around you who do believe in it, who are willing to help you. I had to find someone at Amazon to help me translate it, right? I didn't know how to translate it, so I had to find people around me that were willing to bolster me and give me support when my confidence and my motivation started to wane, because it's hard work. It is not for the faint of heart. You have to have some passion and joy for it, and I know you do, Katrine. I know that's why you're doing what you do, because you do have passion and conviction around it, and feel lucky to have you as one of my supporters as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bridgette, for saying that. Same to you, for sure. Yeah, but I think that's something I definitely had to learn too. Like, where do you put your energy, right? And it's really the people who really get that, and they understand what you're trying to do, and really, find your network of supporters. And thank you for being one of those for me as well. Definitely. And and maybe just talk. What I loved what you just said. I think it's so important to be authentic. That you do the work on how you want to show up in the world and what you want to bring to the people. And can you maybe share just a couple of snippets on what are you doing for your personal practice? Maybe
my personal practice.
Yeah.
So I have a sitting practice that I've been doing 9 years now, I think. I can't even, I lose track of time. I think 9 or 10 years, I don't remember. So I meditate. I won't say every day. I went through a period of time where I was really hard on myself and would get mad at myself if I didn't do it every day, but I've relaxed a little bit. But the pandemic has caused me to up the amount of time that I do every day. So I sit for about 30 minutes every morning, first thing when I wake up. That's been really important to me. That's where I do my like I said, my kind of dedicated work. But I tell you, just talking about mindfulness and teaching it is a practice in of itself. So I feel like I've grown a lot just through teaching it and learning from other people's experiences and being with other people and witnessing what's working for them and what's not working for them. I mean, I find that to be actually part of my mindfulness practice. And then I've just recently, in the last probably 6 months, taken to doing yoga more regularly. So I try to do a brief practice every day, which I'm very much a head-centered person. I'm not a very body-centered person. And so part of my journey is to become more familiar with the intelligence of my body. And that's part of what I teach executives as well, is using their full intelligence, their mind, their heart, and their gut. And I feel like when I'm doing my sitting practice, I can tap into those, but I'm finding using the whole body as a source of intelligence has been even more helpful. And I'll tell you, that's been, and I know as a yogi yourself, I'm sure you're probably very proud of me. You're really proud of me, I'm sure, right?
Sure, definitely.
but at least giving my body, because now we're sitting here all day long, which I never had to do before, in this pandemic. I'm literally changed my desk a lot of the time. And I can easily sit here and meditate, but the yoga practices help me appreciate my body more and give it a little bit more expansiveness so I can work with it a little bit more throughout the day. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I'm happy to explore that you explored that too now with the yoga, because I think that's definitely something for me, which I notice every morning too, that I'm a head person too. And what really helps me is just movement. And it doesn't need to be yoga. It could be even like dancing or going for a walk, going for a hike, whatever it is. But I think that is really, something for me too, which really helps me to always kind of come back to my heart and get connected back into my body.
Yeah, and I love how you just said that, and just kind of bringing it back to the corporate space again, because that's kind of my world. We need to also keep encouraging those people, those people, right? Those people who are going to work every day to do that. I think that that's a really important work that anybody who's interested in bringing mindfulness to work needs to remember. That, again, like I said before, we're all human. And you can lead people to finding a more expansive relationship with themselves through the things that you're excited and motivated about too, whether it be, movement or breath work or any of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think maybe with that, we're going to go to my last little, insight, or I'd love to share with you something which I truly believe that only awareness really creates change. And this is why this podcast is called #Mindshift Talk as well, because I truly believe we need a mind shift in our in our culture, in our population overall, not only in the corporate world, but even in our everyday life, and really creating a more kind of humane and conscious future, I would say. And would love to hear your take on that, and what is maybe your vision with mindfulness and emotional intelligence in the corporate world.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. Shifts are always happening, aren't they? Right? And to be able to shift one's mindset is a pretty noble feat, actually, just thinking about what that takes. So my why statement, I don't know if anybody's ever listened to Simon Sinek, but he has a whole thing on starting with the why, and an exercise around finding your why statement. And the thing that keeps me on track in the work that I do is my why statement is to help people navigate corporate life with inner wisdom and with fun.
I love
right?
that. Yes.
And that's been the thing that I have to go to when I get frustrated, or I get worried, or I feel like I'm defeated, or I feel like things aren't going the right way and people aren't shifting their minds quickly enough, right? I get kind of impatient with that. So, I definitely feel like, coming back to the why, whatever your why is, and creating shift is an important aspect of that. And I definitely think, as if we keep shifting and we keep giving people opportunities and supporting each other in shifting towards that next level up, whatever that is, right? So for your next level up may be different, or it is different than my next level up, and that shift doesn't matter what the shift is, because we all have different degrees of shift. It could be 1 degree, it could be 5 degrees, but remember that one shift, like when steering a ship, that 1 degree of shift can change the trajectory in the long term of a ship completely, right? And imagine if we just took those 1 degree of shifts with each person, and continue to do our work supporting people in that system to make those shifts, what a dramatic difference it could be. And it may not be in my lifetime, but is it enough shift? Probably. It's not for me to judge. But every little shift, #mindshift, talking to people about how to do that it's pretty significant in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, and I think that's something we definitely learned this year, that we're all connected, right? And if one person does one shift, it ripples. And thank you. I think that's a great statement to end this talk for today. I think there's definitely more to talk about, and maybe some other time, maybe we have another talk, especially when you maybe have some more insights around.
When I have some data.
When I have some data. What you implemented further. But thank you so much for taking the time today, Bridgette. And it's really such wisdom and insight and expertise you're sharing with us today. And I'm super excited to see that a big company like Amazon is really starting to embrace mindfulness now too. And I think we're definitely on the right path. So I wish you all the best personally, and then definitely on your corporate path as well, in the professional path. And thanks again for being here with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Katrine. And thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your dedication and your commitment and passion for what you're doing and helping shift people's minds as well. So it goes both ways. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Bridgette. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
This was #Mindshift Talk. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode with another amazing leader sharing their journey. To learn more about Create Mindspace, please check out katrinbüßmann.com. My gratitude goes out to my sister Tomke for bringing this to life with me.